are listening to the Up and Under podcast, starting in 3, 2, 1.
Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome into the Up and Under podcast. I'm your host, Hani. Join with me, as always, it's Zeeshan.
Yo.
All right, man. So now that I think we're about 2-3 weeks into the season, and so far, man, things are all over the place. Like, it's been a crazy season so far.
Listen, man, a lot of people, including us, thought this season would be great. And so far, I think it's lived up to the hype.
Honestly, it's been very eventful, and it's just a lot of surprises, a lot of good things, a lot of bad things. But we always usually around this time of the season really look into some of the teams that are overachieving and some of the teams that are underachieving. And a special twist in this episode, we're also going to highlight a few players that are actually underachieving, because that's also a thing to note with rule changes, with equipment changes that have been happening. Because again, players love to complain about whatever they can.
Basically, yeah.
Pretty much.
And again, we do this. It's been 10 or so games. By the time this episode comes out, it's probably gonna be 12 to 15 games in. So again, let us preface this by saying it is very early into the season, right? Yeah. And we know what happens early in the season. Things are all over the place. Good teams play bad teams play great, and then things even out as the season goes on. So again, this is why we do these episodes in the beginning of the season, to see whether we think some of these trends are going to continue throughout the season, or if some of these are just attributable to early season, chaos.
Yeah, pretty much.
And yeah, so the first, getting right into it, the first team that we're going to talk about that's been underachieving so far is the Boston Celtics.
Oh, you love to see it. You love to see it.
Listen, man, there's a reason why we love to see it.
No, there's a reason Danny Ainge left. He knew.
Danny Ainge, listen, bro, he was he made the smart move.
He knew. He saw the writing on the wall. He's like, you know what? It's not going to be my problem anymore. Brad, it's all on you.
Basically, he was like, yeah, I screwed this team over, but
I can leave.
I can leave now. Exactly. So the Boston Celtics, of course, have probably been one of the most, hotly discussed teams in the league.
Rightfully so.
And they've started 4-6 so far, 10 games into the season. They have the 11th seed in the Eastern Conference. Now, basically, the Boston Celtics have kind of just sucked on both ends of the court. They're sitting at the 20th ranked in offensive rating, and they have the 16th ranked defensive rating. For the Boston Celtics, like I mentioned, it's just bad basketball on both sides of the court. And that starts with the lack of chemistry they have. Starting with the stars, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown have just been both, up and down. Jaylen Brown had a great start to the regular season, and we thought this was the year that Jaylen Brown takes that next step forward after, he already took a step last year. And since then, he's kind of regressed a little bit. Now, again, he's also been injured. He's also, he said he's had some issues in regards to COVID and whatnot. So that's also been a problem. Jason Tatum, on the other hand, has kind of been one of those guys that's also been affected by the rule changes. And he just has not looked great to start the season. Now, he's been getting better as the games go on. But again, similar to what I said about Jaylen Brown, it's just been a lot of up and down basketball. It's also been a lot of iso ball, and when I'm mentioning the chemistry, this hasn't helped the chemistry at all. Marcus Smart, we all remember his comments about Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown
wrong.
Not passing the ball. And again, he wasn't completely wrong in that regard either. So lots of iso ball for those two. A lot of inside misses, especially for Jason Tatum, like I was mentioning about the foul rules. He's been very impacted by that. He's one of the biggest complainers in the league. I think we can say that for sure. And now with the lack of foul calls that he's getting, that's really hurt his production even more. And then one thing I need to mention in regards to these two guys is the lack of Jaylen Brown in the fourth quarter is what puzzles me as, looking at Ime Udoka. Jaylen Brown is very good for the first 3 quarters, and then he doesn't get any touches in the fourth. And that's a very weird thing for the Boston Celtics, to have going on, because that's one of the issues that they've had.
Yeah, it's weird to see, especially with the two studs that they have on their team. I mean, Tatum and Brown are two of the best young players we have in the league right now. They're so talented on both ends of the floor. And we saw last year just how good they're able to be Even especially when one was out and the other was playing. We saw how good Brown was when Tatum got COVID, and we also saw how great Tatum was in spurts last season. And the fact that this season it just hasn't worked out at all, where it's like some nights Tatum has it, some nights Brown has it, but it really hasn't come together. And again, the ISO ball, Tatum has those Kobe qualities, and you can love it or you can hate it, but at the same time, you got to also look at, are you making the shots? Because that's something Kobe will say. Yeah, you can take the shot, but you got to make the shot.
And again, speaking about the other players, because again, there is 12 players in the rotation.
Maybe like 9 in the Boston Celtics case.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, in terms of the rest of the rotation, Al Horford is probably being their most consistent player. And Al Horford surprisingly has looked very, very good. That, you're basically a season of rest in OKC really helped him out.
Season of rest and handsomely getting paid.
Yeah, and he's been the league leader in blocks so far, which is crazy to say. He's averaging like 3 blocks or something right now. So Al Horford is being their most consistent player, which is a telling sign for the Boston Celtics. They also don't have a good point guard for the Jays, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, which is another factor into the struggles that they've had. The fact that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are kind of having to take a lot of those ball handling duties. And again, they're 2 very good players, but is that their game? Not really. You don't really want them to handle the ball like that. The problem is Boston doesn't have anybody to do that role. Marcus Smart is not really a point guard.
Well, he's not an offensive threat, which is the biggest problem.
Exactly. And then you have Dennis Schroeder, who's more of a shooting guard playing point guard, right? He's a score-first guard. He's not really a great playmaker.
He's the guy who turned on $100 million. Do you really trust his decision-making? Do you really trust his decision-making?
Yeah, so, they don't have a good point guard to get those 2 guys the ball, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, in their spots. And as a result, as I mentioned, a lot of iso ball, a lot of inefficient shots happening because of the fact that they don't have that playmaker. And, that's evidence, for example, in their lack of pace, 27th ranked in pace. If you had a better point guard, that would probably be changed. Also, speaking about the rest of the guys, they have a lack of depth on their team. Besides their top 2 guys, and I guess Al Horford as well, the Boston Celtics are a very top-heavy team, unfortunately, which is a contrast to what they had a couple of years ago when they made that conference finals run, and it was a collective effort of guys like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Terry Rozier, Marcus Smart, Marcus Morris, a whole collection of guys. And you see that in contrast this year.
And we kind of said that actually in the offseason, just looking at some of Brad Stevens' moves, and we just felt like it was very safe. We didn't feel like the team got dramatically better. In fact, we felt they got a little worse because they lost a lot of depth. You can say whatever you want about Kemba Walker, but Kemba Walker is more of an offensive threat than Marcus Smart is. And Kemba Walker can still improve your pace than Marcus Smart can.
Daniel Tice
is a big one. Because again, at the same time, imagine you had Al Horford and Daniel Tice. That's still a competent front court. You have now Al Horford and his Cantor. You can just...
Well, Robert Williams.
Sure, yeah, Time Lord. But again, Time Lord's also in and out of the lineup because he's hurt. And sometimes he loses effectiveness because, again, he's really just a lob threat. Offensively, he doesn't really do much. And, Josh Richardson, that was an experiment. Aaron Nesmith, kind of a bust. Peyton Pritchard, I swear, this guy turns into freaking Larry Bird against the Raptors.
Listen, Peyton Pritchard's good at what he's good at, but he's not doing much of anything else besides what his role is.
He's literally Boston's TJ McConnell.
Basically.
So annoying.
Except he can shoot. That's the difference, right? TJ McConnell can't shoot. And then, you have Grant Williams.
Except against us.
Grant Williams is, basically... He's basically the Boston Celtics version of Pat McCaw is what I would say. Kind of the guy that randomly just gets 30 minutes a game. Now, again, Grant Williams has some value, but, again, if these guys are your depth pieces, your main depth pieces, you're not going anywhere. And the problem with these guys being your main depth pieces is that my final point is that Boston is kind of stuck with the team they have. They don't really have any other options in terms of improving this team further. Their only viable asset in a trade would be either one of Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum. And that's not... Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum have had their struggles together, but I don't think you would want to give that up if you're Boston. Anybody with some common sense would realize that those 2 are not necessarily the problem.
Yeah. You can't trade one of those guys. You can't trade Tatum for sure, but Brown even, he's put his value so much to the point where, where are you going to find another Jaylen Brown? They're next to impossible to find a guy who plays defense at such an elite level, but also is such a good offensive producer for your team. And again, they've had a good point guards, I guess good point guards in Kyrie Irving and Kemba Walker, and they both left the door. Like, you didn't do anything with those two guys.
Another great playmaker that they had was Gordon Hayward. Now, again, Gordon Hayward is injured half the time, but he's definitely...
Hayward was huge. But now think about it this way. Now you're paying Al Horford $30 million, and you really don't have any valuable assets anymore. I mean, the Celtics, I think they still have some picks. But again, like, if you're finishing always in, like, the top or, like, the middle of the Eastern Conference, how good are the valuable are those picks?
Again, so, like I said, your only trade assets are Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, because nobody else is giving you a good return for, like, Josh Richardson or Enes Kanter, right? Nobody's going to give you
You'd be lucky for a second-round pick.
And so I guess what we'll do for this episode moving forward is that we will discuss whether we buy this version of what we're talking about. So in this case, do we buy this version of the Celtics?
I think we do, man. Like, honestly, as you know, you can take the hate aside because obviously, they're division rivals. But at the same time, we've always respected Boston with the fact that Tatum and Brown are just two talented studs. They've always been a very consistent organization. But at this stage, they really don't have any ways of getting better. Like, and the East in and of itself has already gotten better as well. So how good are the Celtics going to be? It really just depends on how well Tatum and Brown play.
And again, like, we predicted them to be like the 6th seed, I think, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, obviously, I still think they'll get to that point and they'll get better. I don't think this is what they'll be for the rest of the season. But in terms of, is this the version of the Celtics that we think is the Celtics?
No.
Yes. Right, because they're not getting any better, like for the reasons that we mentioned, right? They don't have any trade assets. They have no viable ways to get better, basically. And so this is the team that they're stuck with. So I would say we would buy this version of the Celtics.
Yeah, and I mean, the last point in the Celtics is the main reason why we actually even put them at the 6th seed was we thought at least with Brown and Tatum and Smart, like, they'd have some level of consistency. But one thing you can't overlook is Ime Udoka is a brand new coach. He's the first-time head coach. And it's not easy for a guy to basically rework an entire system that was already so proficient and sound with Brad Stevens, instilled in that culture. So, yeah, definitely the Celtics have been underachieving so far this season. The next team that we want to talk about that's underachieving so far to start the season are the Atlanta Hawks. Surprise, surprise, one of the teams that I had questions about. But the Hawks are currently 4-8 as their record, the 13th in the conference as of right now. And they're 11th in offensive rating, so that's all right, but they're 27th in defensive rating. And this was a concern that we had kind of last season with the way the roster was constructed. Obviously, we know Trae Young's not a good defender. Bogdan Bogdanovic is also not a good defender. Cam Reddish is not a good defender.
Cam Reddish is...
He has the tools, but he's not a good defender.
I think I would say he's been starting to turn around. But, like, in the beginning, yes.
But he can't...
He's another young guy, though.
Exactly, but he can't overcome, like, a Trae Young and a Bogdan Bogdanovic. Kevin Huerter, I don't consider him a good defender, although he's okay. Again, like, your main defenders are Clint Capella, Onyeka Okongwu, and DeAndre Hunter. Those are the 3 defensive players on your team. And the reality is, it's not... Like, those 3 guys can't overcome a full team of non-defenders. And that's kind of what's happening. They're allowing opponents to score basically at a very high level. Like, I mean, I've looked it up. Every loss that the Hawks have had this season, the opponent has scored over 105 points.
I think one crazy stat I heard was that they're letting teams shoot 70% at the rim. If that's
teams are scoring over 105 points a game on them.
Yeah, so, like, if you let a team shoot 70% at the rim, that's basically a guaranteed L.
And that's a good segue into why. And a big reason for that is the rim protector, Clint Capella. He has not been as effective as he was last season. Last season, he was a beast. Now, granted, I think was that a contract year for him?
Yes.
No. Yes, there was a contract year for Clint Capella. And
no, he got an extension, I think is what happened.
Well, either way, he was trying to prove it was a prove-it year for Clint Capella because obviously after the trade from Houston, he needed to reestablish himself. And he played really well. He was a very good presence inside for the Atlanta Hawks. The problem is this season, he has not been that at all. And it's kind of strange considering you'd think he'd be able to do the same things that he was doing last season, but he's not. And that is a big reason why teams are just scoring at will. Because again, not only is Clint Capella one of your biggest guys on the court, he's also your only rim protector. Like the guy off the bench is Gorgie Jang, and I don't really consider him
my guy, Gorgie Jang.
He's Zeeshan's guy, but again, the guy is not the best rim protector to have. Other than that, and I already mentioned, DeAndre Hunter is the only defensive player you have. And if Capella's not playing well, you only really have one guy because Onyeka Okongwu is hurt right now. And that's not necessarily an effective recipe. especially on the defensive end.
Yeah, man, exactly. Like you said, we had questions about their defense. Now, again, their defense didn't kill them in the playoffs last year, surprisingly. But again, this roster is not a great defensive roster, and so for this to happen is not really surprising.
Listen, let's be real. I'll say this: the Hawks had a Cinderella-esque run in last year's playoffs, but they should not have gone as far as they did. The Sixers should have beaten them. I'm glad they beat New York. I'm still gonna keep saying that, but the Sixers should have beaten the Hawks. Like, there's no reason for the Sixers not to beat the Hawks. But again, they were able to get to the conference finals, and everyone got paid after that. But now you're seeing the holes in the roster, and you're seeing the limitations. Another thing I want to point out is that they really don't have any bench scoring. Although they have the 11th ranked offense, besides the top guys, there's no one else scoring. Like, you'd think they'd have some guys who can score off the bench. They have Lou Williams, who basically is checked out. The guy's trying to retire. You have Kevin Huerter, who I expected more out of, especially after an extension, and Cam Reddish. These guys only combined to maybe score 25 points a game, which is not enough considering Trae Young is their highest scorer of 24 points a game.
Yeah, like, speaking of which, Trae Young has basically been doing everything for the team. We talk about how important Nikola Jokic is for the team and how his team literally falls off a cliff when he's not on the court. Trae Young is basically in the same situation where he's kind of having to do everything for the Atlanta Hawks, especially when you factor in that they have no defense. So basically, they're only good on one side of the court, and on that one side of the court, Trae Young is literally doing everything for them. That's not a recipe for success. John Collins is probably their second best offensive player. He, unfortunately, for some reason, is not getting as many shots as he should. He's getting seems like he's shooting 5 shots a game.
But he also isn't a guy who can create his own look, which is also a problem as well for John Collins, which is, again, one of the main reasons why I was a little hesitant to give him the extension that he got, because it's a lot of money to give to a guy. But again, now you kind of seeing the weaknesses of the roster are finally showing up, and it's kind of led to the poor start.
Listen, man, they've been trying to, mitigate a little bit by giving a guy like DeAndre Hunter more shots, and he's been, those percentages have been good. But again, like DeAndre Hunter at this stage of his career with the ball handling, the shot creation for himself, I don't think that's gonna get you to where the Atlanta Hawks want to get to right now.
He's still a young guy developing too, and he's developing that offensive game, so that's not even a polished thing for him yet. So ultimately speaking, the Hawks are kind of in a pretty tough spot because these guys are pretty much locked in. But basically, do we buy this version of the Atlanta Hawks? I'd say yes, because to be honest with you, these are all my concerns with this team, and they're all kind of coming into fruition. Now, yes, it's early in the season. They can definitely turn it around, but this is who they are.
And again, we're not saying that these teams are gonna stay at the same level that they are right now throughout the whole season. We're simply saying, is this the version of that team that we think they are? And the answer is yes. Like we mentioned for Boston Celtics, same thing. You're kind of locked into this team now for the Atlanta Hawks. And this is kind of the team that you're gonna have. Now, can these guys play better? Yes, but in terms of actual roster construction and roster management, this is what you have for the Atlanta Hawks. So in terms of having some drastic improvements, I don't think it's going to happen. The only way I see this happening is that they get a little bit better defensively, and their offense jumps back to where it was last season.
Yeah, pretty much.
Moving on, we're going to be flipping things over to teams that are now overachieving in our opinion. And starting off, we have the first team, which is the Washington Wizards. Now, the Washington Wizards are 13th in offensive rating and 8th in defensive rating. They're 7-3 right now. I think for the main thing about the Washington Wizards is just, I think, dissimilar to what we were talking about the Boston Celtics in terms of chemistry. For the Washington Wizards, the chemistry has been off the charts this season. It's been much better. The players have just been fitting a lot better this season. And again, I think a lot of people expected that when you replace a guy like Russell Westbrook with guys like Spencer Dinwiddie, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Montrezl Harrell, Kyle Kuzma.
But it's also a new team. It's you wouldn't expect a brand new team like this to come together as well as they have. So,
and that's a credit to Wes Unseld, who's been very good for them so far as a coach. And so shout out to Wes Unseld, especially this being his first season as a coach. They have a lot better flow offensively, even defensively. Again, this is a huge difference. In terms of their enthusiasm, defensive intensity. When you're looking at this team last year and the years before under Scott Brooks will just basically not even be playing defense. Whereas this year, you see them, they're all in their stances. They're all trying to guard the ball. In the games that I've seen them, KCP, Bradley Beal, Spencer Dinwiddie, all these guys have been trying to, play some solid defense. And that's resulted in them being a top 10 defensive team. So I think the marked improvement from Wes Unseld to Scott Brooks has also played a huge factor in the start.
I mean, dude, they're 8th in defensive rating. That should tell you all you need to know, considering they've been in the bottom of the league in terms of defensive rating for the last, 3-4 years under Scott Brooks. Basically under Scott Brooks. And like they've progressively gotten worse. We've highlighted this in past episodes, how bad Scott Brooks was progressively throughout his Wizards tenure. And finally, you're seeing with a fresh voice, a new perspective, how well this team is playing. But also one thing I do want to point out is depth. Like you're mentioning Spencer Dinwiddie, who's a better fit with Beal than Westbrook was. KCP, guy who can defend, who can shoot the ball, floor spacer. Kyle Kuzma, hit or miss. But again, he does have the defensive the tools to be a decent defender, and he can be, an offensive contributor. And then Montrezl Harrell, finally, it's amazing what a coach who can actually utilize a player properly and how effective that player can be. Because Montrezl Harrell, it's not like the guy forgot how to play basketball and with the Lakers. It's just Frank Vogel didn't know how to utilize him correctly. Now you're seeing Wes Unseld is bringing him back in a 6-man role. He comes in, and he does what he needs to do, man. And he's doing really well this season.
Yeah, man, exactly. Like the whole team, the team as a whole is being much better, basically. Bradley Beal hasn't even had the greatest start, and we're still talking about the Washington Wizards being this good. That would have been unheard of in previous years, right?
Yeah.
Another guy that I want to mention too, Daniel Gafford. When the Wizards traded for him last season, I was one of the guys that said that this was a huge trade for the Wizards, and so far he's proved me right. He's been great for the Wizards after showing, flashing that promise in Chicago. And not to mention the fact that guys like Davis Bertans, Rui Hachimura, and Thomas Bryant have all been injured. Hachimura and Bryant, I don't even think have played in the season yet. Thomas Bryant definitely hasn't played.
He's hurt, yeah.
Rui Hachimura, I think, maybe played like a couple games, if that. So we're talking about 3 of your biggest rotation guys also not being in the lineup.
Well, those are rotation guys from last season.
Well, again, that is true, but Rui Hachimura, we all expect him to be very good. Davis Bertans, we know who he is. Thomas Bryant's definitely one of my favorite centers in the league, and he's a very nice player too. So adding these guys into the Washington Wizards should theoretically make them better. But the issue is when comparing this team to the rest of the East and their track record in terms of players that they have, not that their players are bad or anything, but again, comparatively to the rest of the conference, the question that we have to ask ourselves is this the Washington Wizards team that will be standing at the end of the season?
Yeah, no. Like, honestly speaking, they've had a good start to the year, and like things have gone well for the Wizards, but like I can't see, there's definitely still holes with this team. It's not a perfect team, which is why we actually had them lower in the standings, because we had question marks. Because what if Beal doesn't have a good game? What if Dinwiddie gets hurt? Like, there's still question marks with this team. Kuzma's up and down. You don't even know what you're gonna get out of Kyle Kuzma. I feel like the most consistent guy is Montrezl Harrell, the guy you can rely upon the most. And honestly speaking,
and again, he plays one side of the court basically.
Exactly, he plays one side of the court, and that's pretty much why can we buy into them? Not really, because again, other teams have also kind of underperformed as well, which is kind of elevating the Wizards up. Like teams like Milwaukee, obviously we mentioned Boston. These are teams that have underachieved so far, and that's why it's kind of elevating the Wizards up. But I feel like once they play a few more games, things will balance out. Yeah,
basically, I don't buy that this is going to be the Wizards team that will be standing at the end of the season. Now, again, before the season started, we did say that this Wizards team would be much improved over last year's Wizards team.
They definitely look better than last year.
They're a lot better as a team, no doubt about that. But are they overachieving? I think so.
So far, they won the Westbrook trade. I will say that much, because they just got depth and more value out of one single player, which is kind of the reason why you don't pay one guy that much amount of money.
Especially a guy that's had so many issues throughout his career.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the Lakers are kind of their own problem right now. Then moving on to the next team that we feel is overachieving so far, and it's the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, I got into it with a bit of Cavs fans on Twitter, because I don't know why they felt the need to come at me for speaking the truth, but fine. I'll give you some love here because the Cavs have started the season 7-5. They're currently 5th in the Eastern Conference. They are 20th in offensive rating and 11th in defensive rating. But what's the crazy part is that they have one of the weirdest lineup strategies in the league right now. I mean, besides Nick Nurse, because Nick Nurse is a creative genius. But basically, when healthy, they start two 6'1" guys in their backcourt, and then they play 3 7-footers in their front court. So basically, they start Darius Garland and Colin Sexton, and then they start Lauri Markkanen at the 3, Evan Mobley at the 4, and Jared Allen at the 5. And honestly speaking, surprisingly, it's worked. Like Mobley, first and foremost, Evan Mobley is an absolute. That guy's a beast, man.
Monster, man.
Like honestly speaking, if there wasn't a Kate Cunningham and a Jalen Green, this guy could have got number 1 overall. Like that's how good the guy is.
Listen, man, Mobley's been the best defensive prospect I've seen at the big man spot in a long time. Probably, I guess, the last great big man prospect on the defensive end would probably be Anthony Davis.
Yeah, pretty much, man. Like honestly speaking, like. He's been so much better than I thought he was going to be. Just defensively, he can legitimately guard 1 through 5 because he's quick, he's athletic, and he's long too.
The IQ has been, I think, what's the most surprising thing. Like his ability to understand the game already on the defensive level, especially as a big man. When those things we know as big men take time to develop in the league, especially defensively. But Evan Mobley's already right there.
And we were even questioning the fit. Like, what was Cleveland gonna do? Were they gonna run Allen and Mobley together? Because we were like, these two guys, they play the same position. But surprisingly, it worked out well because Mobley also is able to stretch the floor a bit with a jump shot. And it works in the way because Mobley can guard all the positions. He can, roam outside the paint, but also be inside the paint. And Allen can do what he normally does, be in the paint and be one of the best shot blockers in the league.
And not to mention, Jared Allen on the offensive end has also expanded his game a lot too. He's been taking those mid-range jumpers. When he gets the ball on the block, it's almost guaranteed 2 points with his hook shot. So not to mention the fact that he's always been looked at as that defensive threat. Not so much on the offensive end, but he's really worked hard on his offensive game as well.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, Jared Allen obviously deserved every penny of that extension that he got. And one player in particular that has impressed me a lot on the Cavs, Darius Garland. Darius Garland looks so much more polished I think he's in his 3rd or 4th year at this point. He looks so much more polished now. He's not. We knew the playmaking chops are there, but you can see the shooting is there, the floater, the poise there, and the IQ is always showing up, and it really, really leads to Colin Sexton being expendable.
Which is why they didn't give him that extension.
Pretty much, and because rightfully so, you don't need another 6-foot guy on the team. But then again, you have other role players on the team that are stepping up. Like you have guys like Chetty Osman. Chetty Osman's LeBron's guy. Honestly, the guy can shoot, man. Chetty's good, man. Ricky Rubio has been surprisingly really, really good for the Cavs.
He's looking like Olympic Ricky Rubio,
which is really surprising. But thank you for dropping 36 from the Knicks, though. That's great. And then even a guy like Dean Wade, he actually impressed me in terms of the guy comes in, he plays his role, he hits his shots, and he plays hard. And that's really all you can ask for. They've been a very scrappy team to start the season, and they're finally showing progress in their rebuild. But this is the one thing that bothers me that Cavs fans keep coming at me for, because they're telling me, they're so excited about, oh, look at this, our team is so good. I'm like, this is what you were supposed to do a year ago? You were supposed to show signs of improvement. Finally, you're showing that, but let's not get it twisted. We'll win something without LeBron, and then we can talk. But at the same time, this Cavs team has definitely shown improvement. They're showing growth. But do we buy into this Cavs team, especially being a top 5 seed in the conference? Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely. Things are going to even out. They're eventually going to come back down to earth. But right now, you're seeing growth, which for a Cavs team that, honestly, without LeBron, hasn't had the greatest history, it's great to see them finally doing the right things.
And listen, man, they have building pieces, finally. They have building blocks, right? Jared Allen, Evan Mobley are 2 of my favorite players in the league already. And then Darius Garland's been great as well, like we mentioned. So, you add a guy at the wing spot if you're Cleveland in this year's draft, for example.
You can even add a 2-guard.
Yeah, and you're looking pretty good, I think, for, in the future.
I didn't even mention Isaac Okoro is still on the roster as well. And again, if that guy gets it together, he's already good defensively. But if he can get some sort of an offensive game, that's another piece you got as well.
Exactly. So in terms of Cleveland Cavaliers, listen, man, we like this team. I think a lot of NBA fans are warming up to this Cleveland Cavaliers team. But in terms of if we buy this version of the Cavs, yeah, no, that's not happening.
Quickly, one honorable mention, and again, I know people are going to tell us to mention them as an overachiever. The Golden State Warriors are definitely overachieving this season, at least from the perspective of nobody expected them to start the season 9-1. I will say this: Steph Curry has been fantastic to start the season. He's honestly the only MVP candidate at the moment to start the year, and they're just playing well. But I will say the schedule has been relatively easy for the Warriors, and they haven't been tested yet. But
again, we'll see with the Warriors in terms of this next stretch coming up, because this next month will be a good test for them in terms of the amount of good teams that they're playing. But for the Warriors' perspective, man, you play who's on your schedule, and so far, I think this team is meshing very, very well.
They're winning the games they're supposed to win, which is signs of a good team.
Like, not to mention, again, they haven't had, for example, Jonathan Kuminga. They haven't had James Wiseman. They haven't had Klay Thompson. So, bringing those three guys back, I think, will improve that team even further. So, again, we'll see over this next month with how Golden State is and, what they're going to be for the season. But, yeah, shout out to Golden State as well, who's been playing very good. Flipping things over to not just the teams, but to some of the underachieving players that we want to talk about. And, again, this is early season struggles. This happens to a lot of players. But, this season's been very interesting in terms of the fact that these struggles have been emphasized with, for example, like you mentioned, new foul rule changes, new equipment with the Wilson ball. So, there's been a couple of factors that I think have, inflamed the discussion even further with the players this season. So starting off with our first player who's been struggling very much, we have Damian Lillard of the Portland Trailblazers. Now, no surprise, he's had a terrible start. He's averaging 19.3 points a game. He's had 8.3 assists per game. He's averaging 8.3 assists per game, which is, pretty solid. But then the real issue with him is his shooting. He's shooting 36.5% from the field, 25.5% from three. And that's a huge improvement over what he was shooting to begin the season, which was like 15% or something like that to start off the season.
Yeah, it was bad.
He's been bad. And of course, the Blazers are struggling as a result. Nobody expected them to even be a playoff team, to be honest, or anywhere near the top 6 in the playoffs. But, obviously with Damian Lillard not playing good, they've been struggling. They're currently 5-6 right now, 10th spot in the West. And again, the offense is one thing, but, as usual, the Blazers are sucked on defense. They're 22nd right now in defensive ranking. Two bright spots for them, I guess we can say, is CJ McCollum, Norman Powell. Both guys have been very good and have kind of helped make up for the lack of production from Damian Lillard. But again, Damian Lillard is a huge difference between CJ and Norm and Damian Lillard in terms of what value they bring to the team. And if Damian Lillard is struggling, the Portland Trailblazers are going absolutely nowhere.
Yeah, no, there's nothing more you can say. I mean, Damian Lillard is the Portland Trailblazers. And we kind of said it, that the roster, especially with losing a lot of players, they're not as good as they were last season. And honestly speaking, you can argue that they're worse than last season. And that's a big problem, considering not only is Dame on the fence or does he want to stay. I know he's been saying he wants to stay in Portland, but man, he's not getting any younger, man. The guy is basically a 9-10 year vet now. The guy needs to start winning at some point in his career, and maybe Portland's management has done a poor job of putting a team around him. Let's be honest with you. But again, this team goes where Damian Lillard goes, and this season it hasn't been great.
And to your point, that's one of the factors that's probably affected Damian Lillard's season. Despite the fact that he's always been saying, "Oh, I'm gonna stick in Portland," all the noise does factor into production. No matter what players want to say about tuning out the outside noise, that noise always does factor in production. I think, for example, Kenny Smith was saying it on TNT about, him being able to, who did they face? Oh, the Clippers. Him being able to count the amount of high fives and chest bumps that the Clippers bench was giving to their players on the court. Whereas when he was looking at the Trailblazers, it was all just high five, nice stuff. That plays into, guys' productions. Speaking about other issues, I think this has been a recurring theme for a lot of other stars as well. The massive dip in free throws and the foul changes. Now, Damian Lillard has been one of the most outspoken players about him hating the new foul rules. And listen, man, I love Damian Lillard, and even another guy that we both love in Fred VanVleet. We both like these guys. But I heavily disagree with what these guys are saying, man.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, right? These guys, the NBA had to do something because from a product standpoint, it was getting so bad and so offensively orientated that it was just making the game unwatchable. And if this is what you got to do in terms of, sure, there are a few fouls here and there that have been swallowed, like there's a few fouls that are going missed. But if that's what's got to happen to clean the game up from these garbage offensive fouls, then I'm all for it.
I will say this, like if there's a running joke going around that literally you can give a player an Oscar for how well he can sell a call, that's kind of telling, man. Like that's kind of an issue considering, a foul is supposed to be called when you're legitimately absorbing and getting contact, and you're trying to actually legitimately score the ball, and the defender is impeding you from doing that. Now, when you're creating the contact and doing some sort of flailing your arms or whatever, those aren't basketball plays. Those aren't plays that are making you any closer to score the ball. They're just trying to get the referee's attention, which is not part of the game.
AKA us, and I think about 99% of other NBA fans love the new foul rules.
It's so much better. It makes the game make more sense. Like, there's no more of those stupid stoppages where it's just like, oh, a player just flails their arms. And I'm distinctly going to remember that foul, the Damian Lee shot that happened last season against the Raptors. I don't think that was a foul, but that was the guy who kicked his leg out. He flailed and he got a foul call.
And again, that's not even like
that's
the
not
fouls.
Not even the worst one.
Yeah, I mean, that's not even the fouls that they changed. It was more so the upper body fouls that they changed. But again, similar point, right? Like the changes in the rules have been so much better for the game, I think. And unfortunately, Damian Lillard was one of the biggest names in terms of those guys that God love these garbage calls. Unfortunately, him, James Harden, Trae Young, Steph Curry, all these guys God love these garbage calls. And for Damian Lillard, it's really affected his production in terms of him, not wanting to attack the basket as much anymore because he's not gonna get those, garbage calls. And unfortunately, again, I like Damian Lillard, but bro, everyone else likes it. If you're the only one complaining and you're one of the few players complaining, then honestly, just suck it up.
I will say with Dame, the shooting is definitely the biggest concern, and I think that is the biggest hindrance. He can still attack the basket and he still can do the things that he can do, but he's got to improve those percentages, man. He can't be 36% from the field, 25% from three. It just doesn't work for the guy because we know Damian Lillard is better than this, but clearly something is not right.
Well, again, to your point, he's been reportedly injured since the Olympics, which is another reason why he didn't play well in the Olympics at all. It's, I think, a abdominal injury. So basically, since the Olympics, he's been injured. So again, that has definitely not helped his production. But the issue for Damian Lillard is that his lack of offensive production isn't made up with good defense because, as we know, unfortunately, he's one of the worst defenders in the league. And so if you're not getting the offensive production from Damian Lillard, what are you really getting from him? Now, again, he's an offensive threat, which is why he's able to average those 8 assists a game, just because of the gravity that he has as,
He's also a good playmaker. People underrate his playmaking. He can distribute the ball. He just never had guys who can make shots. And finally, he has Norm and CJ are making shots, and, that's actually working out for him. But yeah, in terms of defensively, he's not a great defender, and honestly, his offense is the biggest driver for his team. It really is.
So I think, in totality with obviously the injury woes, and then I think just, the percentages, we don't expect it to be this bad for Damian Lillard.
No. It hasn't improved. It's gotten better from what it was, but
yeah, so the question is, do we buy this version of Damian Lillard? I think we can both say no.
No.
We both expect him to improve, hopefully improve dramatically. But again, if this injury is as bad as, some people have said it is, then this unfortunately may be the Damian Lillard we see this season.
If he's injured, he should sit. That's what I think he should do. Yes, he wants to win, but your health comes number one. And if you're hurt, sit. Because that might be the best thing you can do for Portland. Because then once he comes back healthy, then he can start getting on a roll again, and then the team will follow suit. But yeah, Damian Lillard definitely underachieving so far, but we feel like he will bounce back. Speaking of another star player that's underachieving, it's James Harden. And I won't say he's underachieving. I'll say, especially his numbers. His numbers are just underwhelming considering what we know of James Harden. Now, he's averaging about 18.3 points per game, 7.7 rebounds, 8.5 assists, shooting about 39% from the field and 40% from three. And, when you look at it holistically, these aren't really James Harden numbers. He is coming off of injury, and he's not scoring at the same level we're all used to seeing. Some of that can be attributed to the new foul rule, which, again, James Harden is the poster boy for that. Let's be real.
Listen, man. In fairness to James Harden, you gotta give credit to the fact that it's definitely something for the league to make like 5 different rule changes just because of you. That has to count for something, man.
It definitely does count for something. But again, like James Harden, he's still trying to draw those calls, but you can just see how, used to he is of getting those calls and actually doing that. But again, I think obviously it will just take some time to adapt. Great players will always do that. We know James Harden can definitely adapt.
In terms of adaptability, prime example is this past Olympics, right? How all these guys everyone panicked after like the US almost lost their first 3 games because they're like, oh, these guys can't handle the foul rules. And then, they adapted and they killed everyone.
Yeah. Eventually they'll adapt. But again, another reason why what contributing to James Harden's lack of scoring is the injury. Zeeshan pointed out when we were making the notes, he's not really getting a lot of lift on his drives to the rim, which is surprising. The guy's shooting 39% from the field. So that means at the rim most of the time, because James Harden doesn't really shoot a lot of mid-range shots. So that's surprising, considering James Harden has usually been really good at the rim. He's been one of the best finishers in the league. He has a good floater, but something is clearly bothering him that he's not able to do that as effectively as we're used to seeing him. But honestly speaking, the scoring might not be there, but he's still rebounding the ball really well. He's still passing really well, which is such a good value for the Brooklyn Nets, considering they don't have Kyrie Irving because he doesn't want to show up for his team. But he's still doing those things. The 3 ball still looks good. He can still hit the 3. It's really the only real thing of why we're even bringing up James Harden is just because he doesn't look like James Harden. The James Harden we're used to seeing dropping like 36 points, doing his thing, cooking guys up and stepping back and drilling a 3. Like, he's not doing those things. But to be honest with you, the Nets don't really need him to be that guy because of the fact that they have Kevin Durant. And so that means that's leading to the question is, do we buy this version of James Harden? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
James Harden, he is still one of the best players in the league, and he can regain his form. I
think 2 quick points to mention. Basically, James Harden in one of his press conferences mentioned that the first game of the season is the first time he played basketball since last season, basically, right? Because of the fact that, and we know hamstring injuries are lingering. Like, those things honestly never go away until you properly recover from them. So for him, you can definitely tell it's been a while since he played basketball. Like you mentioned, he's shooting 40% from 3, so the shot isn't the issue. The 39% comes from the fact that he's not able to get those shots to go in at the rim. And we know a lot of the times shots don't go in at the rim because you don't have the lift on those, for example, those floaters, or you don't have the ability to speed through a layup, right? And so, that injury is still definitely lingering, or him trying to recover from that. And then number 2, I gotta say, is that I think we're also, a lot of people are their expectations for James Harden on the Brooklyn Nets are not what they're supposed to be, in the sense that James Harden is not going to play like Houston James Harden on the Brooklyn Nets. It's a completely different role. He does not have the role that he had in Houston, where he was supposed to score like 40 points a game.
Well, the team was built around him in Houston. That was the thing.
Exactly. And in Brooklyn, he's been their point guard, which is why you've seen him get those triple-doubles, him get those 10 assists a game. That's his role. Get like 25 points a game, get like 10 assists a game. He's not going to be the guy scoring like 40 points a game in Houston. So I think people also have to adjust their expectations in terms of the new role that James Harden is playing. The final player that we're going to talk about in terms of, being underachieving so far is De'Aaron Fox. Now, De'Aaron Fox is averaging around 18 points per game, 6.2 assists. However, similar to Damian Lillard, the telling signs are in percentages. Shooting 39.3% from the field, 20.4% from 3, and averaging 3.5 turnovers a game. Now, the issue with De'Aaron Fox is that, he's always been a good player, but he's always been an up and down player on the offensive end, especially when it comes to his jump shot. He's always been sort of like the John Wall on offense, attack the rim first, and then the jumper is going to come and go. And again, we've seen that with John Wall. It's kind of been De'Aaron Fox throughout his career. He was making a lot of those shots last year. He's not making some of those shots this year. And that's kind of what happens when, guys who can't really shoot the ball, who are not great shooters. Sometimes they're going to look good, sometimes they're not going to look good. In addition, I think the Kings are also still not a good team at all, which does not help in terms of, reducing the load on De'Aaron Fox. Now, I think they have more weapons this year. Guys like Harrison Barnes. Harrison Barnes is having like the best season of his career.
Shout out his agent.
Yeah, shout out to his agent. Buddy Hield, he's still pretty much Buddy Hield, but, he's there. Davion Mitchell can reduce some of the ball handling responsibilities a little bit. And obviously, we all love Tyrese Haliburton, right? So the Kings have a little bit more, weapons, but again, they're still not a very good team. And that doesn't help when you're trying to get a guy out of a slump. So in terms of De'Aaron Fox, again, like, he's a great player. I think everyone likes his game. But in terms of, is this the version of De'Aaron Fox that we buy? Unfortunately, I think it is, for the reasons that I mentioned. Now, again, I think he'll get better as the season goes on, but he's never been a great shooter. And like I said, with, not great shooters, those percentages go up and down. And that's been the case so far for his career. So even if he had great numbers last year in terms of percentages, or better percentages last year, I never thought those percentages would sustain.
Yeah, I mean, I think your point about him being compared to John Wall is actually a pretty good comparison. The only difference I'll say is that John Wall was a much better playmaker than De'Aaron Fox. He was a much more willing passer than De'Aaron Fox is.
Well, also, defensively, there's a huge difference.
Yeah, John Wall was also a much better defender than De'Aaron Fox. But ultimately speaking, I think number one, I can't judge him too hard because he's been stuck in Sacramento, which is career purgatory, because literally that's where your career goes to die. Because the Kings, they don't build you up, they don't get talent around you. Which again, they've gotten some young guys, but you've been in the lottery on stacked drafts. Like it's kind of hard to mess that up. But at the same time, the guy needs to be properly groomed and be able to grow. And be cultivated in actually a winning environment. And that's not what the Kings are. Like, your coach is Luke Walton. He's not a guy who's notorious for developing players.
Listen, man, you remember my coaching hit list that I had before?
Oh, yeah, that's still going.
That coaching list. Listen, man, I have to take an L on Luke Walton because I thought he would have already been fired. So I'll take my L on that because, like I said, I thought he was going to be gone
but he's still on the
list. A while ago. But again, I underestimated, I guess, how bad of a franchise Sacramento is. So,
but he's still on the list. The hit list is still alive. But still, like the fact of the matter is, like, they haven't been able to grow him. So I can't put all the blame on De'Aaron Fox, but I also can't be surprised if he's going to be the same player moving forward. Because what evidence do I have to back that up that he's going to be better than what he is now? To be honest, there isn't much.
And again, like, the player that he is right now is fine. Like, he's a borderline all-star.
Well, the shooting percentages are kind of bad.
Yeah, but I mean, like, in terms of him being a borderline all-star, that's all right, man. That's, like, pretty good. He's made a good amount of money in his career. Like, there's nothing wrong with being a borderline all-star.
But he wants more for himself.
Again, it's just that if you want to be, like you said, if you want to be looked at as a legitimate star, you kind of have to play up to that expectation. And unfortunately, I've never seen De'Aaron Fox in as good of a light as, for example, some other people may have.
There's definitely talent in De'Aaron Fox, but somebody's got to unlock it, and I think he's got to go somewhere else. I think it's only a matter of time. The guy wants to win. I think he's going to ask for a trade eventually, sooner rather than later. Let's be real, because Sacramento absolutely sucks. Sorry, Kings fans, but you already know this.
Yeah, bro, I don't think they have a problem with you saying that.
No, absolutely not. They're not Knicks fans. You say one thing about your team, oh my God, you insulted the greatest team ever that hasn't won a championship since 1973.
Yep.
But we're not talking about the Knicks, we're talking about the Kings. So it is what it is. But those were some players that we felt were underachieving to start the season. And also the teams that are over or underachieving, in our opinion. Let us know what you guys think. Agree or disagree. What other teams do you feel are overachieving or underachieving, or even some players? Let us know either on the comment section on YouTube or on social media. Finally, to end off this week's episode, we're going to go into the Up and Under segment. Pretty eventful, and obviously the first one we got to talk about Zeeshan's favorite topic, scraps happening in the NBA.
Yes.
There's already a fight in the NBA. Fight. We'll say that in air quotes. An NBA fight. So are you up or under on the whole Nikola Jokic versus Markieff Morris situation? Now, just to give some context, so basically it was near the end of a game between the Nuggets and Miami Heat.
Nuggets were blowing out Miami.
Pretty much, and Jokic was basically just trying to make a pass. It was a fast break. It was a fast break. He was either trying to make a pass. I honestly thought he was going to go for a full court shot, but looking at the other, he's just that awkward. It's just, you don't know what he's going to do. But Markieff Morris, for whatever reason, decides to bump into,
elbow him,
basically elbow and kind of shove Nikola Jokic, and Jokic did not take too kindly to that. And Morris, because he's Markieff Morris and he thought Nikola Jokic was some soft pushover, turned his back, and Nikola Jokic came in and knocked him on his ass. That's pretty much what happened, and a whole scuffle, kind of, in typical NBA fashion, a whole scuffle got started.
Lots of talking.
Jimmy Butler was, telling Jokic to meet him in the back, and basically the classic stuff. But basically, the funniest parts about this actually happened off the court, where apparently Marcus Morris, the brother of Markieff Morris, went onto Twitter to voice his, frustrations, basically saying, like, "Oh, you have to hit my brother in the back." The Jokic brothers were just like, "Listen, man, you started shit. You got to be able to back it up, man." And they also bought tickets to the game in Miami.
Oh, did they? I didn't see that.
They bought tickets.
No way. That's
to
funny.
The game in Miami when they play. So the Jokic brothers are gonna be there in Miami. It is funny. But basically, the NBA basically came down, and Jokic gets a one game suspension, and Markieff Morris is getting, I believe, a $14,000 fine.
No, it's only like 50. I think he got 50. No, he got more than that. He got a decent fine.
Like, he got fined for...
Again, these fines for NBA players...
They're nothing. Loose change.
They don't matter.
But...
Jimmy Butler also got fined.
Jimmy Butler got fined for instigating and trying to make it, escalate the situation. But basically, are you up or under on the scrap and also on the punishment?
I'm up on the scrap because, again, I'm always up for... Like, we need some more competitiveness in the NBA now. Again...
Kendrick Perkins did the same thing.
With these new rules... I think we're seeing a little bit more of that, which is good. I like that.
I like it.
Again, the NBA probably won't like that because corporate, they have to, protect their corporation. But as fans, we love that.
Oh, it's amazing.
On the punishment, I'm under. Here's the thing about, my opinion on the situation. First of all, about Markieff Morris. Like you said, don't turn your back, right? Shaq said it. If you hit somebody, don't turn your back on them and then get mad when they hit you back. Like, bro, what kind of logic is that, man? Come on.
No logic.
And again, like, people are talking about, Markieff only, shoved Jokic.
No.
If Jokic was smaller, Jokic would also be on the ground, right?
Yeah.
Markieff, it just looked like nothing happened to Jokic because Jokic is just massive. That's what, right?
Yeah, man.
And then all the people talking about, Jimmy Butler's going to do this, Jimmy Butler's going to do it. Jimmy Butler stood beside Nikola Jokic when it happened for, a good half a minute. He did nothing. Then when he's 50 feet away from Nikola Jokic, then he wants to start talking. Come on, man.
Yeah, listen.
Stop it.
Listen.
Stop.
First of all, the fact of the matter is, Markieff, there was no need for Markieff Morris to even do that. Because, dude, what are you doing? You're already losing the game. Why are you fouling the guy? Especially on the fast break. The guy hasn't even, crossed half court yet. And you're shoving the guy.
It's the Morris reputation.
It is the Morris reputation. But what did you expect to happen? The guy wasn't going to push you, try to knock you back. And again, Jokic kind of walked it back saying, it wasn't the best decision at the time. But... in his head, we all know what you're thinking. Oh yeah, the guy, I don't let anyone do that to me. And not to mention, do you not know his brothers?
Bro, you don't mess with Serbians.
Bro, they're Serbian, but they're 7 foot. They're jacked. You don't want to mess with those guys.
Again, there's a whole, if you want to do your research on Jokic's brothers, you can do that. You guys can search up Jokic's brothers and see for yourself, what they are. But, all these American guys talking about, Miami would step to Jokic's brothers. Stop it, bro. Stop that. What's Udonis Haslem 90-year-old? What's this guy gonna do? Stop it, bro.
Bro, I think I was hearing Kendrick Perkins actually talk about this today. Basically, these European guys, bro, they think they consider the United States heaven because of what they go through. They go through a lot harsher conditions, a lot more physicality than stuff than any of these American players ever go through in their life. So when they come in here and they see a scrap like this, bro, do you honestly think that they're gonna be afraid of you?
Listen, man, for all the Americans that have never watched EuroLeague games, European games, Dude, just look up how intense their games are compared to like
Bro,
soft
those are
NBA.
fights, yo.
Those are, dude. People literally die over those games. No joke. So like, all these American guys, all these Miami Heat guys, there's that whole picture of them like standing in the locker room after. Stop it. Just stop, bro. Like again, you gotta show yourself. Like you gotta portray that image. I get that, but like. These guys are not going to do anything. Like, seriously, bro. Stop it. Stop
Not against Jokic, man.
Stop the cap. Next up, some unfortunate news. Again, like, we don't go up or under for injury news. But, 2 pieces of news. Number one, the Nuggets' Michael Porter Jr. is reportedly going to be out for the foreseeable future with a back injury. And number 2, Cleveland Cavaliers guard Colin Sexton also tears his meniscus. So what are your thoughts on those situations for both teams?
Well, it kind of sucks for both players, for teams, but I think it sucks more for the Nuggets just because everyone expected Michael Porter Jr. to take another step forward in his development. But again, this was some of the concerns that I had, particularly when we talked about his contract extension. The guy hasn't had a healthy season in the NBA. The last season was as healthy as that he's been in his career, which has been relatively short. He's only, in his 3rd or 4th season. And the guy's hurt again. And again, remember, he came into the league coming off of back surgery. The fact that now he has a back injury, it's not a good thing. And that's the problem I think I have with paying a guy like that early. Yes, he has all the talent in the world, but it means nothing if he can't actually be on the court. And for the Nuggets, they were banking on him to give them that scoring boost that they weren't going to have from Jamal Murray, because Jamal Murray is going to be out at least until the beginning of next year. And so they thought MPJ was going to come in and, at least give them that level of scoring. But he's not there. And then for Colin Sexton, to be honest, it just kind of sucks for the Cavs because the Cavs were trying to trade him. And now they can't trade him because he's hurt. But honestly speaking, Darius Garland is doing so well to the point where I don't feel like Colin Sexton will be missed that much.
I mean, listen, man. Obviously, for the players both, it sucks because, obviously nobody wants to see the players injured. In terms of the Nuggets, like you mentioned, like MPG was looked at as Jamal Murray, his replacement on the offensive end, at least until Jamal Murray came back. Now with him being out, again, Jokic is going to have to do even more than he was doing, which is just insane to think about. And, like, it's not gonna lead to great results, honestly. Like, they may be able to win some games, but it's not what you want. You don't want to have this burden on Nikola Jokic even in this stage of the season, right? You don't want him to be able to be doing this much. And again, like you mentioned, the reason why Michael Porter Jr. dropped and like a lot of teams didn't want to draft him was because of that back. And now that back injury is flaring up again, it's not a good sign, unfortunately. We've seen what back injuries can do to guys like, for example, Larry Bird, Tracy McGrady. Those things, unfortunately, ended their careers. Now, with modern medicine, hopefully that doesn't happen for MPJ.
Back injuries suck,
But
man.
again, those things are not good injuries at all. And then obviously, like you mentioned, in terms of the team aspect for Colin Sexton, it might not affect them that much. But obviously, Colin Sexton is also looking for a new contract. And unfortunately for him, this sucks, because you never want to go into an uncertain contract situation with an injury. So, obviously, rest up for both of these guys. Hopefully, they get back on the court soon. But again, injuries are just bad situations all around for teams and players.
Yeah, for sure. Moving on, are you up or under on the NBA competition committee seriously thinking about changing the transition intentional foul rules? So now basically right now the current rules is that, during transition, a team can intentionally foul a player to prevent a fast break. But the NBA is thinking of changing that to potentially allow those, those plays to continue, or to go into what the EuroLeague kind of does, or Olympic basketball kind of does, where if you intentionally foul someone on a fast break, it will become an automatic technical foul. So are you up or under on the NBA considering this?
I don't know. It's a tough discussion. I think probably I would be up on it just from the sense that, like, again, it's not really... The NBA has kind of started to crack down on a lot of these non-basketball plays. It's a smart play for sure, but it's not really a basketball play, right? And so for that reason, especially in terms of the flow of the game, NBA's really been trying hard to improve the flow of the game, especially with, television and whatnot. So I kind of agree with the NBA on that. Again, I don't know what the enforcement of that rule would look like, though. Obviously, I see in EuroLeague, and obviously the fouls would go down as a result, but I don't exactly know how the rule would be enforced. For example, how do you know what's an intentional foul or not?
If a guy wraps another player up, like what we see on a fast break, that's a technical basically.
Yeah.
Instead of what it used to be just a side out.
It's about like when there's an ambiguous foul, would they count that as a technical?
Like you're talking about like what the Spurs did to Steve Nash pretty much
exactly, right?
Like that's more egregious and like that's a whole different set of circumstances. But I kind of like it, but at the same time, I'm like, how effective really is it? Because from an X's and O standpoint, I understand why coaches do that because it saves momentum. Because if a team gets an easy bucket, you want to prevent easy buckets pretty much. So if a team gets an easy bucket, that builds momentum and that can allow like a comeback to happen or, can allow for more deep, allow a team to, gain some momentum off that. So I can see why, but at the same time.
Again, there's both sides to it, right?
Yeah.
It's the issue of finding balance between it. Again, whichever way it goes, I'm not going to necessarily be mad about it.
At least they're thinking about making the game better, which is definitely a positive.
Again, it's a marked comparison, for the NBA, like between the NBA and, for example, like the NFL, where it seems like the rules that they make just make the game worse.
They make a rule and then they revert back, pretty much because no one likes it.
Listen, man, at least the NBA isn't making rules that are worse. Well, sometimes. Not as bad as the NFL, we'll say that. Okay, not as bad as the NFL.
Okay.
Yeah. Finally, are you up or under on the Clippers' Paul George saying the new Wilson ball lacks the same touch? And that, of course, more players are missing as a result. Now, for context, the NBA three-point percentage, I think, is down like 2% or something. So the stats aren't necessarily incorrect in that matter, but are you up or under on Paul George saying this and, what the implications of this are?
I'm under. Shut up, way off, P. It's back. But honestly speaking, all these players complaining about the Wilson ball, like, please just stop. Like, it's a basketball at the end of the day. It's still a rubber ball. Like, like a leather wrapped ball. It's still the same basket. It's still a basketball. Like, they didn't change the foundation of what a basketball actually is. And ultimately speaking, if you're a good shooter, you'll be able to shoot with any ball. Like, case in point, Steph Curry. I don't think he has any problems with shooting this ball because he's clearly dropping 50-plus points.
Well, I mean, even Steph Curry's percentages have been down, but in fairness, Steph Curry's percentages are always down at the beginning of the season, and then he ends off the season properly.
Again, I think a lot of the percentage being lower is the volume of threes. A lot more teams and players are shooting threes this season. And more volume leads to more attempts. More attempts would lead to a lower percentage because obviously not everyone is going to be hitting 40% or 50% from three.
So 2 points I got to add to that. One, I think to your point about them shooting more threes, that also has to do with the new foul rules, right? Less players will want to attack the basket because now players have to be smarter about their shots because they know they're not going to get those garbage fouls anymore, right? So now more players are shooting those threes because they're afraid to go into the paint and get hacked and not get a call. Number two, I think one of the reasons also for the percentage drop is because of the fact that there's a huge difference now in last season starting out with no fans in the stands compared to this season starting out with fans. But we know how much of a deterrent fans can be, for shooting the ball. Right, there's a huge difference.
Let's be honest.
Yeah, there's a huge difference in that. So having empty stadiums comparatively to having full stadiums now will definitely affect the percentage. I think it's just there's a lot of different factors all around. Again, maybe the Wilson ball plays a factor into that, but again, nobody really cares if you want to complain about the ball, right? Because at the end of the day, you're getting paid millions to shoot a ball, and basketballs are all essentially the same. Let's be honest.
Yeah, pretty much. And again, like, they're still good quality, brand new ball. Like, it's not even like you're playing like with those like, old ass freaking no grip balls that we played with.
You know the balls that are all gray because there's no more orange part on it.
Pretty much. Like, these are still good quality, fresh basketballs that are tested and everything. So yes, it's not a valid claim in our opinion. But with that concludes this week's episode. We hope you guys enjoyed it. Definitely subscribe to the show on all the various platforms. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, YouTube. Basically, wherever you can find a podcast, you can find us with the Up and Under Podcast. Also, follow us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at @UpLetterN_Podcast, Facebook.com/Up and Under Podcast for all the latest updates whenever we post a new episode or a reaction to news as they occur. So definitely check that out if you haven't done so. Also, check out our website, upandunderpodcast.com. It's our central hub for the show. It's a place where we write blog posts with every single episode. So if you don't have time to listen or watch the full thing, you can read about it on our website. So definitely check that out if you haven't done so. And yeah, man, more regular season content on the way. obviously this season, we mentioned it earlier, it started off, it's been pretty fun, man, and we're expecting more fun to continue to happen this season. So with that concludes this week's episode. We'll see you guys on the next one. Take it easy.
Easy.